This video is brought to you by Squarespace. We've been sued. My name is Felix and I'm your host for today's episode of What About It? Starbase is getting fixed, the FAA gets sued over SpaceX and Starship, Falcon Heavy sets a new record, and Rocket Lab is ready for its next mission. Stay tuned and let's dive right in. Starship updates. Another week goes by and it looks like SpaceX's workers decided to waste no time in getting the launch site ready for the next orbital flight attempt. It's clear by now that the old orbital launch mount is here to stay, and instead Musk's engineers will have to do everything in their power to fix it as fast as possible. On the other hand, the FAA is being sued, so that could mean trouble. More on that later. A lot has happened since the last episode. Excavators were working day and night to get rid of all the debris that could be found at the base of the OLM. It looks like SpaceX is trying to salvage as much infrastructure as possible. That's why some of the rebar between the orbital launch mount's legs was bent back to shape and now will be a part of the new foundations that will be poured, hopefully in the not too distant future. You know what they say, if you can't fix it with a hammer. The doghouse piece that was shielding the OLM's main fuel lines was taken off to allow for the installation of new pipes. Maybe they decided to already include necessary piping for the new water deluge system. Some scaffolding also appeared on top of the launch table stack and new stairs were set up near one of the legs to help workers get to the launch table's insides. As there was no door near those stairs, workers decided to make their own entrance in a true SpaceX fashion of doing things. Who needs shielding anyway? During the Twitter space organized by Elon Musk for his subscribers, he shared a ton of insights as to what actually happened during the launch and how SpaceX plans to protect the launch site in the future. The most plausible explanation for why the concrete base didn't make it was finally revealed. Apparently, Raptor engines didn't break the FON deck immediately. Instead, the sand underneath the launch mount compressed so much that the layer of concrete above bent and then cracked. So this is how the cookie crumbles. Elon also revealed additional information about the water-cooled steel plate that is supposed to be used instead of a full-blown water deluge and a flame trench. Apparently the plate will cover the whole OLM base, including its legs. Then the entire thing will act as a sort of high-pressure upside-down shower head, where the water will be poured through hundreds of small holes, forming a water barrier on top of the plate itself. This will help to deal with the acoustics as well as the heat, while at the same time needing close to zero maintenance between launches. The idea is not new, but it might just be the perfect solution for SpaceX and Starship. Thanks to the outstanding renders by Ryan Hansen's Space, we're able to see how those parts might fit together. At least in theory. We'll have to wait for the next launch to see if this system really works. Hopefully, all the necessary piping will be integrated during the repair process on the orbital launch mount. As we were expecting, the man himself told us that Mechazilla, the orbital launch mount and integration tower, or OLID, wasn't harmed in any significant way. Yet recently some tower cladding was removed, so it's not like it didn't suffer any damage at all. Hopefully a quick panel swap and some minor repairs are all that's needed to bring Mechazilla back to its original pristine condition. We've speculated that the GSE tanks at the orbital tank farm might get sleeved with brand new shells, but Elon confirmed that they wanted to replace these tanks altogether anyway. So no problem. Instead of producing their own storage from steel rings, they will just buy more hot dog looking horizontal tanks, while a large GSE tank farm will be disassembled. As it will take a long time to replace those tanks, we don't expect to see this change before the second flight test. Speaking of which, a lot was said about the first launch itself. Surprisingly, Elon Musk thinks that concrete chunks most likely weren't the reason for the Raptor failures and the eventual loss of the Starship. Firstly, the test flight exceeded Elon's own expectations. According to him, the vehicle itself proved to be incredibly well designed, especially considering the fact that it didn't fall apart when tumbling wildly through the sky. During liftoff, we assumed that 3 of the 33 Raptor engines on board the Super Heavy were struck by debris and shut down, but instead Elon told us that they decided not to light them at all as they could have damaged other engines. They simply showed data implying a non-nominal function. He also revealed that we were really close to seeing an abort, as the limit of engines needed at liftoff was set to 30, which means only 3 can be out of service during the launch. Which still is way more than basically any other rocket in the world. An interesting side effect of the 3 engines malfunctioning is that the whole rocket drifted off the orbital launch mount. Apparently this maneuver wasn't planned, and it was just pure luck that Starship didn't crash into the launch tower. Oh boy, we got lucky. Musk also confirmed that the hydraulic power units were indeed destroyed, and at T+85 seconds they lost all the thrust vectoring control capabilities of the Starship. This means that the initial flip we saw during SpaceX's livestream wasn't in fact a separation flip, as John Innsbrucker commented during the broadcast, but just the rocket spinning out of control. Altitude and speed were just too low to attempt a safe separation. This means that the webcast hosts likely weren't told what was happening. Understandable, the crew in mission control had other stuff to do, like giant rockets spinning out of control, for example. Elon managed to end the debate about 2 significant things. First, he confirmed that after the booster's explosion, the ship didn't attempt to save itself by firing its onboard engines, as there was some evidence to back this claim. Unfortunately, he also confirmed what some people were worried about. Apparently, the thing you see now on your screens are holes blown by the FTS system. Those should be bigger. This means that the FTS activation and the vehicle explosion were separated by almost 50 seconds, which means that the safety system failed to do its job. As a result, the FAA will have to investigate why this happened and recertify the system before the next flight can happen. That is definitely something they will have to work on, as it's pretty scary to think that if the rocket went the other way, they wouldn't have been able to terminate the flight immediately. As it is often with SpaceX's CEO Elon Musk, he's pretty optimistic about what's coming next. According to standard Elon time, it will take 6 to 8 weeks before the next vehicle will be ready to launch. Granted, it's not completely impossible, but this certainly is on the lower end of the timescale needed to fix things and prep for the next launch. What this does show us, though, is that there's a very high chance that we will see at least a second launch this year. They also haven't decided which ship will fly during the second orbital flight test. Super Heavy booster number 9 will likely be the first stage, but it remains unclear if it will be paired with Ship 26, Ship 27 or Ship 28 as the upper stage. It was mentioned that the next flight test will include the same flight profile as the one used for Ship 24 and Booster 7. It would be logical to use Ship 28 as it's the newest Starship prototype that also has a heat shield, but time will tell. No matter which prototypes will be chosen, they all should perform better than the first orbital stack. You see, Booster 7's Raptor shielding, so the thermal shielding surrounding the engine bases inside the skirt, seemed to cause numerous problems during liftoff, mainly because all of it was actually retrofitted. These were parts not even intended for Booster 7 in the beginning. On the other hand, Booster 9 was already designed with full engine shielding in mind. Using Booster 9 will also solve the issue, ultimately preventing Ship 24 and Booster 7 separation. This new generation of boosters uses an electric thrust vector control system. Thanks to this seemingly insignificant change, now every Raptor is independent of each other. Elimination of the HPU means that it will be significantly harder to damage a whole cluster of engines. It is called engine separation. You don't want a single part on a rocket that, if it fails, drags several engines with it. Will that be enough to survive until separation? I do hope so. Musk not only thinks that SpaceX will fix the launch site in 2 months, he expects they may be able to squeeze in 4 or 5 flights this year, which sounds absolutely crazy. He estimates that the probability of reaching orbit this year is around 80%, and it increases to 100 over the next 12 months. What do you think? After seeing so much progress, can SpaceX actually pull off a launch or two this year? Maybe even 5? As always, let me know in the comments. I am eager to hear what you think. And while you're at it, hit the like button, subscribe, or even become an active supporter by hitting the join button or by following the Patreon link in the description and get behind the scenes access, including our Discord server. Thank you so much for your support. On we go. Now here's what I talked about in the beginning. Even if miraculously everything goes according to schedule, we still have to address the elephant in the room. After Starship's successful yet explosive launch on April 20th, some environmentalist groups decided to sue the Federal Aviation Administration. 5 plaintiffs argue that the FAA decided to avoid a full environmental impact statement and instead released the launch license based only on the proposed mitigations. According to the lawsuit, those mitigations aren't at all proportional to the potential harm that can occur during Starship launches. If the FAA doesn't win in court, SpaceX could get its flight license revoked, and what's even worse, the court orders them to conduct a full-blown EIS. This would hold any launches from Starbase for at least a year, most likely even more. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, your powerful one-stop tool to connect with your audience and generate revenue through gated, members-only content. Manage your members, send email communications, and leverage audience insights. Extend Squarespace's already powerful e-commerce capabilities with Squarespace extensions. Manage your inventory, promote products, streamline bookkeeping, reconcile and file sales tax, and ship products all around the globe. Display social posts from your profiles on your own website. And it works the other way around too. Automatically push website content to your favorite social media channels for your followers to share further. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/whataboutit to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Elon stated that SpaceX isn't aware of any significant environmental damage after the first launch, so maybe the lawsuit will get dismissed altogether. Time will have to tell. On a brighter note, after pouring lots of concrete in the weeks leading up, the first Mega Bay 2 section was erected at the build site. We're still unsure as to what exactly this building will be used for, but some sort of production line or a place where the prototypes get their finishing touches seems very likely. Looking at how the previous bays were assembled, we expect the SpaceX workers to first prefabricate the sections on the ground and then stack them together like a big Lego set. This one will definitely look a bit different, as this time the used beams are white, not gray. In the case of Mega Bay, the first beam was erected at the end of October 2021, and the first prototype, serial number 16, entered the building in May 2022, so it took about 5 months until it was operational. We'll see how fast SpaceX can assemble this one. Even more signs of a possible Starship assembly line can be seen next to the production tents. A few months ago, SpaceX started a project called Star Factory, whose objective is to streamline the rocket's production as much as possible. Just like it was first done with the Ford Model T, engineers at SpaceX aim to create a system that allows them to assemble a Starship every 72 hours on an assembly line. Rockets produced on an assembly line. That's why the Star Factory is already expanding, as can be seen in these pictures provided by Mauricio from RGV Aerial Photography. It also appears that SpaceX wants to start using stamping or forging presses to accelerate the process of designing new Starship parts. We can tell that by what seems to be a press pit, a special type of foundation designed to accommodate heavy machinery. If you're into Tesla and how they revolutionized their production process of cars, you'll know the term gigapress. If not, it basically stands for a giant hydraulic press stamping extraordinarily large parts out of steel at an exceptional pace. Now let's move a few miles away from Starbase, the messy site, a test complex dedicated to doing all sorts of ambient and cryo prototype testing. Just a few days ago, on April 27th, a massive cloud of smoke was spotted on one of Lab Padre's cameras. It appears that a fuel spillage caught fire and burned some hardware near nose cone 31, including a telescopic handler, forklift, and a few light posts. Fortunately, it looks like the most important thing, the test article itself, survived. Well, at least it survived the fire. There is a reason why the whole nose cone has so many dents. It was tested in the so-called max Q cage, which checks how much a part can endure before it collapses. Think of it like a Starship prototype torture chamber. Nose cone 31 was tested for maximum structural stress, or at least let's hope that this is what was actually being tested. It's shocking how quickly the engineers at SpaceX are returning the launch site to its original state. If this speed continues, we'll see the next prototype test campaign in no time. Now let's move to Florida, where after a series of scrubs and delays, Falcon Heavy was finally able to lift off and break an interesting record in the process. It took a really long time, but after an abort at T-minus 59 seconds, a few scrubs due to the terrible weather, and even a lightning strike at LC-39A, the SpaceX teams preserved and successfully launched the first fully expandable Falcon Heavy on April 30th. And it performed exceptionally well, successfully placing Viasat-3 America's Gravity Space GS1 and Arcturus satellites into their desired orbits. I watched until the end and tweeted our long journey in the middle of the night. Even though the launch was expendable, which means no landing legs on both boosters and the core stage, we were still treated to some breathtaking shots from SpaceX. They released a video from the second stage showing Earth's sunset followed by engine ignition, and they showed us some great views of our home planet, live from space. This launch was a pretty special one, and for a good reason. It wasn't only the first Falcon Heavy flight to use a previously flight-proven fairing, but it was also the one where the same fairing broke the record of being the fastest and hottest ever to be recovered by SpaceX. It re-entered Earth's atmosphere with a speed 15 times greater than the speed of sound. The amount of plasma generated is stunning. If you're asking yourself why it didn't burn up, imagine it like a large feather. It is very light and large, and even though it is screaming fast, it's only around 4.5 kilometers per second. That's around 2/3 of orbital re-entry speed. The plasma is not created by the fairing burning up, but by the air in front of it being compressed so hard that it heats up to the point of forming a plasma. And if all goes well, this wasn't even the last Falcon Heavy launch we'll see this year. Just 2 days before SpaceX's heaviest operational vehicle launch, a much less powerful yet still a workhorse of a rocket was launched from Cape Canaveral's Slick 40. This time another two O3B mPOWER satellites were launched atop booster B1078. O3B mPOWER is a second-generation constellation of 11 communication satellites, all of which use phased array antennas to send terabits of data around the world. The first two satellites from this constellation were also launched by SpaceX back in December of 2022. As it's mostly the case with Falcon 9, the mission ended up being a complete success, with the payloads being deployed to mid-Earth orbit and the booster landing safely on Just Read the Instructions, one of SpaceX's autonomous drone ships parked out in the Atlantic Ocean. This is a week of breaking news. Here's the next one. The European Space Agency, or ESA, appears to be in a sticky situation after a seemingly successful launch of the JUICE mission. JUICE, or Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer, is supposed to take a good look at, well, Jupiter's icy moons. Before it can do that, a few things have to happen after launch. One of the steps in the spacecraft's commissioning or setup phase is to extend its 52.5 feet radar for icy moons exploration antenna. As of recording this video, this step wasn't successfully completed yet, even though it should have been. During the deployment, the antenna got stuck about 1/3 of the way through. Currently, the leading hypothesis is that a tiny deployment pin didn't make it all the way through the hole, blocking the mechanism from extending. We're talking millimeters here that can decide whether the antenna will properly extend or not. No pressure. Fortunately, ESA has a plan. During the coming days, JUICE will use its thrusters to shake itself. This is combined with a rotation maneuver that will orient the spacecraft so the mechanism can be heated up by the sun. This will hopefully get the pin unstuck, resulting in the radar antenna's proper deployment. It'll dance. Imagine that. Juicy! If that fails, ESA engineers most likely still have a few tricks up their sleeves, but if nothing else helps, the mission can even proceed without the radar, as it's not used for spacecraft to Earth communication. It just means that fewer science data can be gathered once JUICE arrives at its destination. Other than that, the commissioning phase is going extremely well, and no more issues were found with the spacecraft. Look out for some juicy updates on my Twitter at Felix Schlang. Rocket Lab is ready for its next mission. We're getting really close to 2 consecutive launches from New Zealand's LC-1. Tropics is a planned NASA constellation aiming to monitor the formation and evolution of tropical cyclones, including hurricanes. Good for us here in Florida. The original contract for the deployment of 6 satellites divided into 3 launches was awarded to Astra's Rocket 3. But we all know how that went. Not everyone makes it to space on the first try. After this incident, NASA awarded the rest of the launches to Rocket Lab's Electron. The only catch is, in order to make the constellation useful, all sats have to be deployed within a tight 60-day window. The missions Rocket Like a Hurricane and Coming to a Storm Near You are scheduled to lift off from LC-1 just 2 weeks apart, and I do love their mission names. Currently, as is often the case with rocket launches, the one thing to delay the first launch is bad weather, high winds and stormy skies. Hopefully, in the coming days, the weather will clear up enough to allow it to launch. Also this time, there will be no attempt to catch the booster, fingers crossed. That's it for today. Remember to like and subscribe, check out our merch store to beef up your space nerd wardrobe, crazy stuff and absolutely worth a visit. And if you want to get even smarter about space and rockets, watch this video next to continue the journey. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again on the next episode. Panel swap and some swap. It's a swap. During liftoff, we assembled. He estimates that the probability